Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. We have people joining in from all across the globe. Thank you so much for joining this session hosted by Bero. My name is Shakti Prasad. I am the head of content at Bero, and I run the Procurement Espresso magazine. I welcome you all to the webinar titled Cost Modeling for Procurement Professionals. Before I get started with the session, just a few housekeeping rules to be kept in mind. All the participants will be on listen-only mode for the entire duration of the webinar. We will take up the questions at the end of the presentation, but we would encourage our attendees to key in their questions anytime during the session. It can be a question, it can be a comment, it can be an observation, or any personal experience that you have had with a supplier. Just post them in the Q&A box and I will read them out for you. So the question box is given in your control panel. There could be a lag of a few seconds in between the transition of slides, so please bear with us. If you have any difficulty in joining the webinar, for some reason, if the video is not fine or there is the audio has some rickety, so if you're experiencing some rickety audio, please try to log back in or key in your queries in the Q&A box and my team will try to help you. Firstly, I am happy to introduce Shobana Jivanandam, Senior Cost Model Analyst at Bero. I hope you all can see her on your screens. Shobana has been with Bero for nearly a decade, and during a tenure has worked on more than 500 cost models, over the past several years, and is a specialist when it comes to building various types of cost models, such as should cost model, activity-based cost model, a total cost of ownership model, that is a TCO model, as well as landed cost analysis. During the course of today's session, she will showcase an example of a custom-built cost model that was prepared from the scratch. Thank you, Shobana, for joining this session. Now, you want to say hi to the audience before I move on to Robert?
Yes, Shakti, thank you for the kind introduction. Hello, everyone. Yes, I am going to present custom-built cost model, and here we are here to discuss about cost models and how it can help in procurement.
Thank you, Shobana. Now I am happy to introduce Robert Reason, a former CPO and now a co-founder of a company called Bynamics. Bynamics is a digital cost model solution provider. Besides being a CPO and now, of course, an entrepreneur, Robert is a self-confessed music buff and enjoys genres such as 60s jazz, 70s rock, and new age music. Robert had spent his entire career working for retail and wholesale companies in the Netherlands. So in fact, he joins us from Rossum in Netherlands, a town outside of Amsterdam. Before co-founding Bynamics, Robert was the chief procurement officer at Bruna. So Bruna is a B2C seller of reading materials, including books, magazines, paper, stationery, multimedia products, etc. So in a career spanning 20 years, Robert once told me when we were having some discussions some time back, he said he was in over 4,000 negotiations and managed, that is 4,000 negotiations with suppliers, and managed a cumulative spend of about 6 billion euros. So during the course of today's session, Robert will showcase an example of an automated cost model tool, the one that can be generated at a click of a button. So basically, we're going to showcase two approaches. One that can be custom built, that is what we call as the bottoms-up approach, and two, an automated cost tool termed as the top-down approach. Thanks much for joining today's session, Robert. You want to say hi to our audience?
Hi, everybody. Very happy to join the session, and thank you for the introduction. This is actually true. During my own career as a CPO, I got frustrated by the fact that people talk about prices, but not about cost. And this is something we all should change.
Yes, of course. Sorry, I forgot to mention, out of your deep frustration for the lack of, well-built cost models, you actually went and founded this company where, you digitized the entire process. Anyway, next slide, please. Let's move on. Yes, so just to start off the discussion, we just broke the cost components of an ale, a beer, a glass of beer, for example. So we took Netherlands as the country. So Robert, every time we drink a glass of beer in Amsterdam, we pay roughly 40% as EBIT to the producer. That's a net profit straight, and the manufacturing overhead is just 10%. Administrative cost is about 12%, and direct materials, which we think is perhaps the most, the biggest cost component in a glass of beer, accounts for just 30%. So roughly 40% goes as profit to the producer. I mean, we just put that out there just to showcase that as a consumer, that is as a retail buyer, we don't have much control over the price that we pay. Whatever is the label price, we have to pay. But that doesn't mean that as procurement professionals, we have to pay what the supplier quotes. As procurement professionals, we have much greater lever in figuring out the cost component and then entering into a fact-based discussion with the supplier just so that we get the right and optimal price. So this is just illustration to begin with, to showcase that as a retail buyer, we don't have much choice or control over the price we pay, but as procurement professionals, we certainly have control over the price that we pay for the products or services that we source. Robert, any comment that you would like to make before I move on?
First of all, don't start arguing about this when you are drinking a beer in Amsterdam. That's not the right moment. But I fully agree. As a procurement professional, you should have some insights into the industry cost profile. Otherwise, it's pretty hard to do professional negotiations. So you should roughly know which cost drivers are the most relevant.
Exactly. Okay, let's move on. Next slide, please. Okay, so procurement managers in general face several challenges on various fronts. So these challenges that we have listed out specifically pertains to the costing aspect of their, costing aspect, especially when it comes to sourcing goods, services, products. Shobana, you've worked with several clients over these years, and of course there are 4 points mentioned on the screen. So let me ask you, for example, what are the challenges when it comes to decoding the manufacturing cost of the product?
Okay, so when it comes to decoding manufacturing cost, of course, we all will know what is the cost of production of a given product. Like at least, say for example, if a handbag's cost is $100, I mean, we would think like, okay, there will be at least 20 to 25% profit margin, so the cost of production should, should be anywhere between $75 to $80. But that's not the case. $100 bag cost of manufacturing could be, only around $20-25 max. That too, if it has a costliest material that's being used in the manufacturing. So, this kind of, the cost model that we have will give demystification aspect to the pricing that people will procure currently for. So in those ways, decoding manufacturing cost will be helpful. And one more thing, given the current scenarios, like we all see, like, COVID situation, war situation, so the price increases, crude oil price increases, energy price increases, electricity price increases. So considering this, all the product prices will increase. Say for example, citric acid. Citric acid is a product, where the cost of manufacturing and the energy cost, especially in the cost of manufacturing, will be say around 4 to 5%. Even if the electricity price is going to increase by 10%, the citric acid price should not increase more than 0.4 or 0.5%, because it's only the 4 or 5% of the energy is going to increase by 10%, right? So it's not like the whole of citric acid should increase by 5% or 10%. So the cost model will give you details on the cost components, its contribution towards the final cost, and each cost component's forecast or how the market scenario is going to be in future. And based on that, you will be able to make a fact-based decision. So cool. In those ways, cost models will decode your manufacturing costs.
That's cool. So Robert, Shobana raised important points about inflation. especially with COVID, and then the aftermath, the opening up, the sudden closure of the economy, and then the sudden opening up of the economy, kind of upended the supply chains, and it led to an inflationary conditions, especially in the Western world, which is not in many economies, which has not experienced inflation, say for 35, 40 years, is now experiencing the inflation. An entire generation has not experienced these kind of price rise. And with an unfortunate war in Ukraine, which is an added factor, many commodities are kind of in short supply. The supply chains are getting hit again. Fertilizers, for example, sunflower oil, palladium, to speak of, just to quote few examples, uh, is facing unprecedented challenges when it comes to sourcing as well as managing costs. So cost models can be helpful, when it comes to negotiations with suppliers on price in an inflationary economy. I mean, you've been in thousands of negotiations. So why don't you share your experience and thoughts on this point, Robert?
Yeah, of course, we all know this is a crazy situation and a lot of stuff is going on. So prices will increase. But still, you need to keep in mind that salespeople, account managers, marketeers, they look after their own margin also. So to be honest, they always try to gain some margin, also in cases of an extremely tough market. So they will come over with a graph showing you, trying to convince you that there is now something extreme going on, and this is the highest peak in the market. And they will manipulate this graph in their advantage. So they gonna tell you, this is the highest moment we are confronted with, and now you need to help me. So let's say the price is 20% higher than last year. So we need a 50% price increase. And then it's up to the procurement professional to do two things: to look at his or her own information, so to check if this is only a peak or how the trend line is following. And the second thing is to realize that commodities is only one of the cost drivers. So when commodity is 1/3 of your price, like the glass of beer, you only need to pay the impact of the commodities, which is 1/3 of your buying price. So that can make quite a difference. So when you don't have insights into the cost drivers and the total trend line of the commodity prices, it will be the salespeople who win the negotiation.
Okay, that's interesting. And the profit margin, determining the profit margin is also very critical to figure out whether the price quoted by a supplier is a fair price or not.
Yeah.
For example, the glass of beer example that we saw in the previous slide, 40% of glass of beer goes towards EBIT. Now, of course, I can't tell the bartender, hey, that's not a fair price, I'm not going to drink your beer. As I said, as a retail customer, I have to pay whatever is on the label. But in your experience, Robert, when it comes to supplier profit margin, how would you approach it overall? Using the cost model, any interesting anecdotes that you would like to share, if possible?
Yeah, of course. The best part of having a cost model available is that you have some kind of benchmark, and it will never be exactly the figures that your supplier is working with. That would be a coincidence. But by showing and sharing the cost model, you start to have a dialogue with your supplier in a different way about cost and cost price elements. And that's something else than this is the price we need to have. And the first primary reaction of a buyer would be, I think that's too much. I don't want to pay that high price. But now with having a cost model on the table, you can look at all the details, and one of them is the profit margin. So the approach I always like is show an industry average profit margin, and then I just confront my supplier with that. So my message is always like this. So I found out that on average within your industry, people earn about 12% EBIT. Do you recognize this? Is this also your average profit margin? or are you earning more or less? And now the second question, on my business, are you earning more or less than the average? I hope a bit less because I'm a big customer, and it's okay when you earn more money on my competition, but not on me, please. And then when you start negotiating in that way, you will directly see what people are earning on your business. Their face will tell if they start smiling or if they are shocked. And I even once got a reaction, "Oh, that would be beautiful, 12%. I only make 5% on your business." Then you can always say, "Oh, that's really good news. That's the reason that I selected the right supplier. Thank you. Let's continue."
Of course, we're not going to fault a supplier for making profits. We want
No, that's
everyone to
fine.
prosper, but it's
That's
just
fine.
a question of whether I'm getting a good deal in the market. That's the focus here. So I mean, it's in no one's interest to beat down a supplier and then extract that extra penny. So Robert, I had mentioned during the intro. I mean, it's a related point that you have been in 4,000 negotiations. The supplier with various suppliers. So let's say that in 10 meetings between procurement and sales team of a supplier, how many times do you think procurement comes out on top and the supplier's sales team comes out on top? It's like a football score, let's
Yeah,
say.
it's a great question, but to be honest, the best salespeople, they give us procurement professionals the feeling that we always win the battle, and that's one of the competences they should have. So I don't know. I don't know. In a lot of cases, I have the feeling I made a good deal.
Okay,
Uh,
so but it's no guarantee that you made a good
I'm,
deal actually, because that's
I'm,
the
I'm
success of the
I'm
sales
not
team,
sure.
right?
That's only about benchmarking, and also there, cost modeling can help because when you make your own um, cost model, you have some kind of reference, and then you know when the price a supplier is offering is finally 20% lower than your cost model, you probably made a good deal. So, but you need to check, and the market and your customers will tell finally
Oh,
if you did a good
So
job.
to add,
okay,
yes,
there's a
yes.
related
To
question
add a
here
point,
from a reader. Sorry, Shobana. You want to make a point?
yes, just I wanted to add a point to what Robert said about negotiation and cost benchmarking. Actually, it is true. Uh, cost models are helpful because it helps in benchmark the price that you receive from your supplier. I had this memorable testimony from one of the home appliances manufacturers who procures millions of pounds of resins, that using the cost model they were able to negotiate better and save like more than $2.8 million. So yes, it is
Okay,
true at.
cool. That's great, Shobana. There's this question, integrity question. I think I would address this to Robert because he's more experienced in real life negotiation situation. So this from Priya Gupta. Robert, how would we know if the profit margin the supplier is accepting is the right one? I mean, like we said, I mean, I will leave it to you to answer. I don't want to comment on it.
You don't know. Actually, when you start with a cost model, you know what the most relevant cost drivers are within a certain business, and profit margin could be one of them. And there are also a lot of industries where people don't earn more than 2 or 3%. So then you're probably not going to focus on that percentage. But when turns out that within an industry, direct material, direct labor, energy cost, and profit margin, when you add them up and it's more than 90%, you know these are the four elements we have to focus on. And then negotiating and discussing profit margin is one of the subjects you need to focus on.
Good.
So it simply depends on the industry, and of course, then when negotiating, your market power, the timing, the access to information you have, a lot of other stuff finally determine the price you are paying.
Cool. That's great. I think we spent too much time on this slide. We have more info to talk on. Next slide, please. Yes. So we have given about 4 scenarios where cost models can be used by, but in no way that it's restricted only to these 4 scenarios. We picked up these scenarios because we thought this is one of those common scenarios that perhaps
Yeah.
one would come across. So Shobana, volume consolidation. You have fielded a lot of queries from our clients, especially when it comes to how do we consolidate volume, and how do you approach this via a cost model. By the way, Shobana, we just got a comment from attendee that uh,
Mhm.
I mean, just if you could speak a bit slower, I think they had some difficulty in understanding. That's it.
All
Yeah.
right,
So
sure.
volume consolidation. How would you approach it, Shobana?
Okay. Volume consolidation is for product categories where there are uh, plenty of specifications of products being purchased from more than 10 countries, which means from each country where there will be at least 2-3 suppliers. So overall, you are dealing with 30 suppliers, 25 to 30 suppliers for your say 200 different specification of products. Volume consolidation will be mostly relevant to packaging categories. Say, for example, laminated tubes, corrugated boxes, carton boxes, shrink films. So, for such products, say, for example, in Asia, there is market for laminated tubes in Vietnam, Thailand, India, China. So there are many Indonesia. There are many places. Instead of
Okay.
procuring from multiple markets and among 25 different suppliers from 25 different suppliers, if you could consolidate your volumes to either China or only India or only Indonesia, depending upon your business setup, that too, of course, the transportation cost would come down, and the geopolitical scenario, based on the geopolitical scenario, the price increases, right, in the today's world. So for those reasons also cost will come down. So considering
Okay.
the current situation and the transportation cost and the duties like anti-dumping duty, if there is any taxes, so all of this, and when you increase the volume of one particular batch, the cost based batch setup cost parameters will also come down for per
Okay.
unit. So considering all these technical parameters and the market parameters, if you consolidate volumes, cost per piece of the product that you procure will come down. So overall, when you buy in millions of pieces, even if it is going to be 1 cent, the cost will be the cost savings will be
Sure.
huge.
Okay. Makes sense. Robert, supply shortlisting for RFP. How do you
Hmm.
think running a cost model would help in shortlisting suppliers at the RFP stage?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because traditionally a lot of people just ask for a price or an offer, and then it's up to the supplier to create some kind of offer. And then you can also do this in a different way. So when you start preparing yourself with cost modeling, you learn what the most important cost drivers are.
Hmm.
And it would be brilliant not to ask for a price or an offer, but to ask different quotation based on the most relevant cost drivers. So when it turns out that direct material, energy, and depreciation of the mold, for example, are the 3 most important cost drivers within a production of a specific product,
Sure.
within your RFP, you should ask for 3 quotes for those 3 elements and a total price. And then you will collect much, much more information than only asking for a traditional quote of or price. And this also is more professional, because you can, otherwise what could happen is you skip the supplier that comes up with a price that looks too high. But by doing this, he could score great on direct material and energy, but not on depreciation on the mold. Then the question I would ask this supplier is, please tell me the way of calculation. Do you depreciate this mold only on my volume, or also on volume of other people? Do you base that on a 1-year contract or 5-year contract? And then you get inside a discussion much more inside of the business.
Sure. A related question, Robert, addressed to you. In fact, I know we haven't formally opened up the Q&A, but I thought it's it's better to post that question right now.
No problem.
Can Robert share a situation? This is from David Nichols, by the way. This is from David Nichols. Can Robert share a situation where a supplier has increased a cost, and then 12 to 18 months later, you use the cost model to go for a cost decrease?
Yes, this is so. When you start working in a more transparent way, this could be the case. This could happen, and I indeed experienced this. But on the other hand, when you have a real partnership, and of course, depending on what you are buying, if it's leverage or strategic category for you, and in case of strategic, you probably want to have a better relationship with your supplier than when it's only leverage. In these cases, it's a more honest way to do business. Also, when accepting a higher price, normally this can be temporary, because when you make the deal, we're going to help you in case of high commodity prices, then there will also be a moment that prices are going down. And this is actually a part that a lot of procurement professionals are forgetting. They are happy after a tough negotiation that they made a new deal and they need to pay something extra. But please keep in mind that it can take 3 or 6 months or 12 months or 3 years, but prices will finally also go down again. So you need to set your base, and you need to make an agreement about future pricing also, especially when you accept a higher price. Try to make it temporary.
That's good, Robert. Shobana, a question for you. It's from Freda Elk. Quickly, because we have much more ground to cover. Is this applicable for IT purchases? That is the cost model. Professional services, managed services, hardware, software.
Yes.
Do you think it's applicable?
Yes. Cost models will be applicable for services as well, especially IT services, wherein we can have man-hours calculated, effort of them based on the steps involved in providing the services, the time taken, relevant man-hours, and the skill set of the workers, and their wage rates per hour. So to complete the entire service, how much time will be consumed, and what all skill sets that we will require, and their wage rates. Considering all this, the total cost can be calculated. Yes.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Shobana. Let's move on, please. Next slide.
Sure.
In fact, we did receive some questions, I think, on decoding. How do you decode the cost components? So, in fact, it is very useful, in a scenario where if you have the cost components in your hand, you can actually have a better negotiation power. Robert, it's straightforward, right? It's no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer, and in all those cases, so when you have insights into the most important cost drivers, you will do a more professional job. So all the 4 examples you see on this slide, it will be extremely helpful. Just looking at managing new categories, when you have the experience, and also when people are leaving the company, and you have some cost models in place, it's extremely simple to learn about the business and to have a discussion on higher level with your suppliers. After 1 day, after studying one cost model, you can have a much more professional dialogue, and you will be more confident when you start negotiating with your supplier.
Yeah, and of course, Shobana, as you have told me before, that when a category manager is new to the category, they would want to learn more about a category. So even their cost models can be very useful if someone is actually new to the category. I think, I think we've been discussing amongst ourselves. So why don't we move on and showcase the cost models in action? Perhaps we can start off with Shobana. Team, can you please hand over the control to Shobana so that she can Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So, oh, that's great. So Shobana is, so she's going to give an example of a handbag. So this, Shobana, you prepared. So what's the backstory, for it? Of course. What's the
Okay.
backstory here? So I think a
This
retailer
Yes,
wanted to. Yeah.
handbag cost model is something we all can relate to. So this was done for a huge retailer who, currently procures multiple types of handbags, and they wanted to increase their portfolio base, the number of specifications, the number of types of bags that they are procuring at present, and they want to sign new contracts, which means so before signing the contract, they want to understand what is the detailed
Okay.
cost of each of the bag types. So here we have the types of
So
bags
sorry,
that
this
we
is high-end bags or uh, low-end bags? I mean,
not so much high end. This we can say low mix, high volume bags manufacturing. So that kind of manufacturing is what we have considered
okay,
for this
okay,
particular model. So because
okay. The ones
the
which
high
you find on a retail store shelf, basically, those kind of handbags.
exactly of yes off
Okay,
the shelf,
okay,
mostly
okay,
for the
okay,
day-to-day usages. So yeah, so I mean, here using this model, you can see the different types of bags. For each type of bag, what will be the cost, and according to the size that you choose, like either it is small, medium, large, the cost will vary, right? Because the material consumed, the time taken to manufacture, everything will change according to the size as well. Mostly the materials will change. And then the material types, like cotton is little costlier, denim is much more costlier, silk
okay,
is costly. So yes, the materials used, the lining materials used, the closures, buttons, accessories, the additional items that will go into the making of a handbag. So you will have an option to choose all of these. According to your selection, cost would vary, and the breakup will be,
okay.
calculated.
So
Yes,
so
and
basically, of course, your research methodology is grounded on firm logic. If anyone, wants to know how the details of the research methodology, we are happy to email that to you. But importantly, I think from what I see here, Shobana, it's important for. I mean, it's not important for a category manager rather to remember every single material that goes into a product or a category. However, by
Mhm.
doing ground up research, it will definitely
Mhm.
be helpful if they know what goes in. So how much does it cost, this
Yes,
bag to produce this bag?
yes. As a professional buyer, we have to be responsible. Maybe it is not
Yeah,
necessary to remember everything, but they will certainly have access to all the product details from their suppliers. So they will know if
correct,
they pick a bag, they will have a product data sheet from their supplier. So it's not a case where they will not know these details. It's additional work, but a responsible buyer should know. How to
correct.
use the model and how to better negotiate for the benefit of the
Of course,
organization.
having a cost breakup sheet will definitely help. I mean, that's a good point. Actually, you said it's not desirable; it's actually responsible. That's a good one. So how much does it cost, Shobana? I'm just curious, to produce a handbag.
Like this is a small bag, right? So roughly around $8, $8 to $10. If you pick up a tote bag,
Okay.
it will be around $10 to $12. A large bag will be $15. So yeah.
How about high-end bags? The fancy ones.
Bags, if you yeah, high-end bags, if you choose leather, like high quality leathers, then that shouldn't cost more than $100, $150 in my opinion.
Oh,
But
that's it.
the
So even the ones which sell for say $500, $1,000 in a high
yes,
street
the,
high-end.
the 100, cost worth of handbags are being sold in the stores at a premium price of $1,200.
Wow.
Certainly, yes.
So basically, people pay for the brand. I'm sure marketeers, it'll be music to their ears. So it's not so much that you're paying for the material, but you're paying for the brand. But Robert,
Yes.
as procurement professionals, we shouldn't be paying for the brand so much. Of course, brand is important, but paying such a premium for a brand, I mean,
Mm,
it doesn't work, right?
mm.
I mean,
I had a lot of tough negotiations with huge companies selling A brands, and it always started in the same way. I said, "Okay, welcome to my office. Before we start negotiating, I am buying products, materials, and products." And then they start laughing. They say, "Okay, let's be clear. We are selling much more than that. We are selling lifestyle and stuff like that. We are not selling products." So that's a real nice start of a negotiation. And finally, you need to come up with some kind of deal. You need to partner.
That's great. So that's fine, Robert. So why don't we showcase the automated cost model? I know it's a bit brief,
Yep. Yep.
but still, it's just to give an idea, a sense as to what is involved and what it takes to build a cost model and how it can actually be helpful in your day-to-day negotiation situation. So, team, can you please hand over control to Robert so that he can showcase the automated versions?
Okay. So what we have been developing is a top-down approach. So we started with collecting a lot of data, and by doing this, you are actually capable of making a cost model within 5 or 10 minutes, top-down. First of all, my message to procurement professionals is each day you should take a look at commodity prices, especially today. So just looking at crude oil, you of course want to know what's going on each month. And we try to make this pretty simple, so you can select almost 2,000 different commodities by looking at a specific category. You select what you are interested in, or you search for specific material like steel. You can also work with alerts, asking some kind of system to inform you about the developments. So here in this case, you are able to look at stainless steel 304. And you can compare Asian, European, and North American prices. They all go up. This is what we recognize. But here, for example, prices went down for the first time. And you should be awake as a procurement professional, because here's something going on. 421, 417. And a lot of people who are missing stuff like this. The other message here, Asian steel is pretty cheap compared to the others, and they used to be on the same level. What you should all add, which are going down, because normally suppliers only want to have a chat with you when prices are going up. But now let's check, for example, plastics and chemicals, and I only want to see price changes more than 5%. So I just generated a list where we can directly learn that here, over the last 3 months, which is very short period of time, those prices are going down. And people only talk about price increases today, but still this is 18 pages of commodity prices, and lots of them also went down. Of course, to be honest, the biggest issue is the prices which are going up, especially energy. So keep this in mind.
So Robert, why don't we do one thing? Why don't we pick a product which is very interesting? Let me think. Frozen lasagna.
That's a nice, very nice idea. Oh, I have it over here.
It's dinner time here, so I'm a bit hungry.
Like a professional cook, I prepared this one in advance. So,
oh yes,
a portion of lasagna. Here it is.
Frozen lasagna. How much it costs, Robert? Frozen lasagna.
I will tell you. So this product, and the only thing you need to do when you make a cost model top down, you need to give the product a name, decide where you're gonna buy it, in which area in the world where production takes place, and then you need to select the industry. So in this case, frozen specialty food manufacturing. Then it would be wise to take a look at your historical buying prices, because in a later stage, you want probably to compare the buying price with the development of the commodity prices, because the difference between those two is the added value of your supplier. And that should be quite stable in time. And then it's just a matter of looking at the bill of material. And frozen lasagna, that's a challenge. On the other hand, it's on the packaging. So it will tell you which ingredients with which number of grams are in this product. So you simply add all the ingredients from the database, a bit more than 250 gram, and that's all you need to do. So it's a matter of selecting the country, selecting the industry, adding the bill of material, and then the system will tell you the current value of the commodities used, 47 cents.
47 cents.
47 cents. And it used to be in 2018, 39. Okay. So prices indeed went up with 8 euro cents, which is 20%.
Interesting. And how about Italy? I thought they make Italy is more famous for lasagna, right? You have chosen France.
Okay, I will change that for you. In France, some people in France believe their lasagna is better than the Italian one.
Okay.
But
let's compare the cost.
This says more about people in France than buying and rational stuff. So I changed it into Italy. So the real magic, when you have insights into the commodity price used for manufacturing this product, first of all, the same as you showed for beer, frozen specialty food manufacturing in Italy now, 10% direct labor, material 57%. And we just have been calculating the average material price, let's say over the last 2 years, the average is 41 cents. They're very straightforward. I dare to tell that the should cost price is approximately 74. And this is what you compare with your buying price. And then you should have a dialogue about the difference. And perhaps I made a mistake, but it's good to have a dialogue. You can even compare your historical buying prices with the historical development of the commodity prices. And this is what I see all the time, also in my professional life. Salespeople are making more margin on your business. So each time there is a price increase, of course, part of it is due to higher costs, like commodities and energy and transportation and stuff like that. But they also try to earn 1, 2, 3% additional margin. So the difference between those two is going up until the moment you confront them with this sheet. And I did that a lot of time. And then you can stop talking when you show them this. And you can only tell them, so it's clear how you treat a loyal customer. And then you stop talking, stop negotiating, because a supplier needs to solve this part. It's not allowed to earn more and more money on a loyal customer. That's not an honest way of doing business.
Okay, that's great. So we are getting requests, several requests, in fact, from from our attendees, Robert and Shobana. I know it was very brief showcasing, so they wanted an in-depth view as to how this works. But so let's do a quick poll. Mirza, can you please bring up the poll? Because since a lot of you have asked for detailed analysis, detailed way of working, in fact, they've also asked for some categories in how these cost models work. So we just want to run a poll just to ensure that whether would you like to explore the automated custom-built cost model solutions for your categories or commodities. You can say yes or no. You can say yes if you want us to actually set up time and then explain how all these things work in a one-to-one situation. We can go much detailed and also do some kind of a diagnosis for your category or a product. If you are interested in that, because many of you have been asking us, but we don't have much time to take up all those queries now. We would need a separate time and date to run those sessions. So if you're interested in that, how you can make use of Vero's automated and custom-built cost model solutions, please say yes. Otherwise, you can say no, or you don't have to answer. It's entirely up to you. So, Robert, while attendees are answering this poll, why don't we take up this question? This is from Sarah Gladwin. So Sarah is asking, using a quotation analysis from the supplier to break down the materials, labor, overheads, and profit is the preferred method in automotive sector, that is, to negotiate best practice with suppliers. I think it's more of a comment. Do you concur?
It's a very good approach, but
Hmm.
it's not really objective when it's only about one supplier, because it could happen that this supplier is not manufacturing in the most efficient way, for example, and then that would be your basis. So it's always better to look at the benchmark, at industry averages, and then you can compare this benchmark with the report and the figures of a specific supplier or 2 or 3 suppliers, and then you will start learning, and then you are able to optimize the deal.
Okay, that's great. Shobana, next question is for you. This is from Louis Fellner.
Okay.
You just mentioned volume consolidation. Remember, we discussed that point, volume consolidation, but haven't considered the inventory costs that might occur to the consolidation. So how detailed are you analyzing what makes more sense? I think she wants to know, Louis wants to know whether you've taken the inventory cost. By the way, I think the poll is still on the screens. Did we? I think we can take off the poll now because it's blocked the screen. Yeah, that's great. So Shobana, so why don't you? Yeah, let's take that up.
So the answer to Louis is yes, volume consolidation will take into consideration inventory carrying cost as well, because you require that much volume. It is because of that you are even procuring it from 5 different suppliers. All that we are suggesting is, instead of procuring from 5 different locations, why don't you procure it from 1 or 2 or maximum 3 suppliers only? Because of course right now the situation is supplier diversification because of the supply shortage, but this is a very brief short period time where supply diversification will make sense. In the long run, if you see, volume consolidation will be a good idea, especially for low value products. Like I was talking about packaging products, right? So for such low value products, volume consolidation is the best idea.
That's great.
Can I add one more thing?
Sure.
So it's extremely important to realize that a pretty important part of the cost drivers is due to fixed cost. So like overhead and GSA. So when your volume is growing, you should realize you don't need to pay again for those fixed price elements, because your supplier is not going to build a second headquarter, and the invoice is going to send you. There's probably a higher amount on the invoice, but the cost for sending this invoice is the same. So when you are using cost models, you can extract this data and you can have a dialogue with your supplier about those elements. So, so for this additional 50% I'm going to buy from you, let's take out the fixed elements, because I'm already covering these costs with my existing volume. And that could lead to a lot of benefit.
That's a good insight. Fixed cost.
One more thing, I even met a supplier, and in a very honest way, he said to me, "That's a great approach. This is something I can explain at home. It doesn't cost me any margin. I need to talk with my boss and the bookkeepers, because this is an honest way of doing business. So I will probably come up with a much better deal for you, because you're right, we already cover the fixed price elements."
You know what? That's very interesting you mentioned that, Robert, because I have a question here from Anna Bogdanova, which is diametrically opposite to the point you just made. Let me read out this question from Anna Bogdanova. Yeah. How do you overcome suppliers' resistance to provide a cost breakdown? Whereas you just mentioned the supplier actually appreciated you saying that this is the honest way of. So Anna basically wants to know, how do you break that resistance?
Just by showing your own cost model, because I always started negotiating with asking the question: we are adults, we can do business in a professional way, both of us. So please put all the figures on the table, and let's together look at your cost elements, and then we will come to some kind of solution. Let's follow the TCO approach. Let's try to find benefits together, and I can probably help you, and we can both benefit from the savings we're going to make. But still, let's say 8 out of 10 or 4 out of 5, which is actually the same, don't want to share the information. They simply block. They say, no, it's company policy. We're not gonna be that transparent. And then the only reaction is, okay, until the moment that you are willing to share the data, we're gonna use my should cost model. So I did some research. This is my figures, and this is the truth. Until the moment you are showing your data. And that's very, very powerful.
That's interesting. So there's a comment from Anita's Legler. I do understand the need of preparing the cost models. I would like to know how to do it. Are you going to share some examples? Yeah, sure, Anita. We will get back to you. Maybe we will arrange a session for you to go deeper into this. I think next question, I think it's more suitable perhaps for Shobana. Shobana, this is from Jain Vardale. What is your approach to creating cost models for indirect categories compared with directs? How do you get to the cost of people services?
Okay, people services or just indirects?
Indirects basically is giving an example of in the indirects, gathering data about peoples and services basically.
Okay, okay. So say for example, when we talk about people services, let's take HR services.
Okay.
In HR services, yes, there are many different activities for which you have to recruit people. Learning and development under HR services, learning and development, recruitment, business partnerships. So there are many activities under which HR needs to work. So for each skill set, what will be the wage rate, and what will be the time taken, what will be the infrastructure that we need to invest in to achieve the services. So like we just have to break down the services under which the service has to be provided.
Okay.
So by breaking down and also having the investment estimated, we will be able to arrive at the final cost of the particular service that we are talking about. Same indirects when we talk about warehousing or transportation, then in warehousing, yes, the area that needs to be covered for warehousing, like say for example 2000 square feet, and then how many layers of decks that you have to stack on one on top of the other. So what product you are going to stock there in the warehouse, and what is the volume, what will be the lead time, what will be the lead time for the next batch to come in. So overall, the volume of the entire warehouse setup has to be calculated, and the amount of products that can be stored in the warehouse, and in which fashion it has to be stored, and whether it is cold storage or normal storage. We have to see all these parameters when it comes to warehousing, and then the total warehouse cost will be calculated. And whereas for transportation, yes, of course, the fuel prices, the vehicle is the reusable, that is what is the usage rate of the number of years depreciation of the vehicle, that needs to be considered. And when we talk about the tires, is it like new tires or retreaded tires? The fuel rate I would have told, driver's wage rate, and the time taken, like from which point A to point B, what is the distance like, so what is the fuel consumption per mile, and how many miles, what is the fuel rate, the vehicle rates, or the depreciation. So all parameters we have to consider and estimate the indirect service cost. So this is how it is overall it is designed. When we really on the Excel, there will be much more details that needs to be covered.
Of course, that's spinning stuff, Shobana. I mean, I really appreciate it. I mean, I don't know how you remember all those stuff by heart, but yeah, hats off to you. So there's a comment from Christopher Hagen. I just wanted to say thank you for putting this together. I found it very helpful and informative, and I appreciate the time that all the presenters took today to provide this information. Thank you so much, Christopher. We really appreciate your comment. So this is another question from Amber Vincent. I was about to read that question, but Amber left. But anyway, let me read it. Maybe we'll write to Amber later. What about cost components for IT hardware such as Dell laptop? When the OEM is a strong market leader, it would seem hard to negotiate this type of product. I think we will answer Amber offline. So this next question is from Mitch Goldstein. Robert, this is specifically for you. I have a question for Robert. It seems this model has a lot of indices. I assume for proprietary reasons, you cannot state many specific indices. For index-based pricing, how can a company get suppliers to agree to the indices that Bureau uses versus more commonly known indices?
What we always say, we use only for the commodity prices, again, which are close to 2,000, we use more than 100 different resources. And of course, these are our family jewels. We are not able to share all those valuable resources. But when there is a tough negotiation going on and a supplier says, what are you using? On request, we are more than happy to share that information. That's not the issue.
Okay, that's
the
great.
second thing is when using a different source, you will find out that the trend line in most cases is similar. It's similar. It would be very strange if it goes in a different direction. So,
okay. So next question is from Timothy Dupre. How does engineered materials work in this commodity search? I think he's referring to the console that you showcased, Robert, and then he gives an example. Centrifugal pump.
Oh, that's a nice example. Now, so when you are using specific commodities and you assemble those commodities into a new product, you should split that while doing cost modeling. So you simply start making a cost model for a specific component, which is a finalized product for a specific company. And afterwards, you go to a second industry where people assemble the different components. So it's just simply a matter of following the supply chain and combining different cost models, because this is what will happen in real life. This is how it goes.
Interesting. I think several people are asking for specific examples, for their category. For example, Piotr Marcinec. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. I'm sorry if I mangled your surname. Can you please show some real business case, shows cost model proposed, for paper packaging, for instance? I'm wondering how that works in the current market situation. I think we will get back to you, Piotr. I think it would require a detailed discussion because many.
Love to share.
Yeah, they've been asking for the specific categories as to how these things work.
I think the main message is what Shobana also emphasized. You can use cost modeling for any type of product, any type of service. So when there is a company doing something and earning money with that, there are cost price elements, and it starts with material or with the salaries of people. And then they make profit, and then they have overhead costs and GSA costs. So any type of product or service can be calculated.
Yeah, I mean, similar queries, for example, Michael Bilski, can you see in Bureau information about paint, for example? Of course, we can. Shobana, we can build either a bottoms up cost model for a paint. I'm sure, Robert, automated cost model should be available for paint, right? So Michael, we will.
Yeah. My answer is the same. Any item.
Okay. Yeah. So same. I know we just have a minute left. Maybe we can ask. We can take up two more questions, Shobana, Robert. Would that be okay?
Yes, sir.
Couple of questions, maybe. Yeah. Okay. I think Nu Wang. I know Shobana, you answered this, but because Nu Wang posted this question, let me ask this question to you again. Is there a cost model template dynamic for goods and services for the indirect spend? I think Nu is looking for a template. But it's available on the automated also, but maybe Excel template. I think that's what Nu means.
Yes, Excel template can be, we can take that offline. It can be shared.
Sure.
It can be shared. Yes.
Okay. So Michelle Hammond is basically asking, is there a ability to see future price forecasts? I know you spoke a lot about cost. It's a very interesting question about the price. It's two sides of the same coin, no, Robert? I mean,
exactly. The way we are using the tool, we are not able to forecast. We only look back. We use the data available, which is very up to date. And of course, there is always a lot of material and a lot of fixed products in the pipeline. So when you frequently adjust your models, it's normally no issue. But I know within Bureau there are a lot of specialists who also are able to do forecasting.
Yes, using the cost model, we can build a price forecast. Like, yes, because cost models will give you the breakup of each cost component. For example, let me take a roof bolter. Roof bolter will have, say, 20% steel, 10% nickel, 5% chromium, again 10% or 15% rubber, and again 10% workers' cost, labor cost. So similarly, it amounts to say 100%. And when we have the forecast of each of these cost parameter, it will be assigned. Say, for example, the 20% of steel will be assigned 1% increase. So the cost will be next year it will be 20.01. So similarly, each of the cost parameters indices will be analyzed, and finally, when those indices are incorporated with the cost impact, like the 20%, 40%, everything, the overall price index, and of course 10% of that will be the profit margin also, so that the cost will become price at the end of the day. So this is how the equation is created with cost model, and the individual forecast of each of the parameters and price indices will be calculated. So this can be designed having cost model as a base, and also each of the individual cost components forecast as basis.
That's
It
great.
can be.
That's great. Okay, that's great, Shobana. So Livia says, thank you for this great session. Thank you so much, Livia. Thank you for your kind comment. Maybe one last question, Robert and Shobana. So this is from Minosh Demori. A very interesting question, actually. How do you manage when the supplier claims price increase due to the fact that the previous wasn't profitable and it's leading to bankruptcy? I think that's what he means. Basically, it's saying, I need to increase the price because the previous price wasn't profitable. That's the crux of the question. Robert, I think you're well placed to answer this.
Yeah.
You've been there and done that.
To be honest, it's a matter of how many alternatives do you have as a procurement professional. So it's not your responsibility offering a price which is too low. That's of course the responsibility of your supplier. When there are no alternatives, you need to help and you need to come up with a good deal. Otherwise, I don't like working with companies who are almost bankrupt and are threatening you. Then when you don't accept the price increase, they will not be able to supply goods anymore. That doesn't give me a good feeling.
Absolutely. Well, we have truly run out of time. Thank you so much, Robert and Shobana. That was a very interesting session on how best to use cost models to drive fact-based negotiation with suppliers. I know a lot of you have posted very specific questions relating to categories. We will get back to you perhaps. We will set up one-on-one to discuss deeper as to how best you could use this solution to your best advantage. We will get back to you in the course of this week. We have received several more interesting questions, but unfortunately we have run out of time. We will try and reply by email as much as possible to those questions that are not answered in today's session. This marks the end of our session. A big thank you to all the participants for logging in today, and we'll be sharing the webinar recording link with all our participants soon. Yeah, a lot of you have in fact asked, would we share the recording? Of course, we will share the recording. Please do reach out to the email address on the screen. If you have any additional questions, don't feel shy. You can send an email. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn. We'll be happy to speak to you. Thank you and have a good day. And to all those in Asia, good night.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
All right. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.